spite of COVID, we are here for another listing. Isn't that magnificent? I think we need to just put our hands together for just that moment. I'm just going to be asking Mrs. Vastiana Riley, Chief Legal Risk and Compliance Officer, to say a word of prayer for us.
Heavenly Father, we bless this day. Today we gather to celebrate and honor the vision you set in our hearts several years ago, which has now come to fruition. Let this and all our achievements honor you. Father, we know when you aim to accomplish something through your people, you will see it to fruition. Help us to continue trusting you, our unchanging provider. Help us to be faithful along the way. May we, out of the abundance you provide us, in turn serve our customers, community, and country, and expand the foundation of our beloved credit union on the rock of your truth and godly principles. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. And to officially welcome you to the Stock Exchange, I present unto you Mrs. Marlene Street Forrest, Managing Director. Just put your hands together for her, please.
Honorable Audley Shaw, Minister of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries, Honorable Earl Jarrett, Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica National Group, executives of the Jamaica Cooperative Credit Union League, Mr. Winston Fletcher, President, Mr. Robin Levy, CEO, that's Group CEO, Ms. Roxanne Linton, CEO, First Heritage Cooperative Credit Union, representatives of the Community and Workers of Jamaica Cooperative Credit Union Limited, Mr. Condell Stevenson, President, Mr. Austin Brown, Second Vice President, Ms. Ashlyn Malcolm, Treasurer, Ms. Terrian Bennett, Board Secretary, Mr. Carlton Barkley, Chief Executive Officer, Ms. Joyce West Johnson, Chief Financial and Operations Officer, Ms. Tracy Ann Henry Williams, Chief Executive Officer, Ms. Sasha Vassiana Riley, Chief Legal Risk and Compliance Officer, Mr. Delroy Watson, Member, Mr. Claude Petgrave, Member, and Mr. David Hall, Member. Lead Broker and Executive of JN Fund Managers, Mr. Alan Lewis, Managing Director, Mr. Dylan Cook, Deputy Managing Director. Attorneys from Pattison Mayor Hamilton, Mr. Dane Pattison. Other providers, Ms. Claudette Crooks, President, Money Markets Limited, Mr. Errol Gallimore, Registrar, Department of Cooperative and Friendly Societies, Ms. Janelda Brown, Assistant Manager, JCSD, managers and staff of the JCSD and JSE Group, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, after all of that, good morning. Good morning. This is truly a momentous occasion. Many persons who are associated with our listings will attest to the fact that the Jamaica Stock Exchange is always pleased to be part of an occasion when a company lists on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, as well as we remain resolute not only about the power of raising capital on the market for companies and other entities, and you'll note I say other entities, but on the overall economic and transformative impact it has on the overall economy. While many may shy away from comparisons, we believe that this comparison that I'm going to tell you about is relevant. In October 2009, we knew that the first listing of access on the junior market was a game changer. Minister, I see you here today, and we go right back to the junior market. And our feeling was correct. You helped to ensure that we had that big win. In May 2019, when we listed Wind Farms Limited, we again felt that this was a new deal and that we would see more government diversification and listing on the exchange. It has proven to be the start of more listings. Well, why am I saying that? Well, today we are witnessing a historic moment when we believe will provide a significant change in the capital market. The utilization of the market not only by companies but approved entities. I think we really need to put our hands together and recognize the initiative of C&W Jamaica Limited, Cooperative Credit Union. What is common in all of these milestones, including the listing today of the 450 million units of the C&WJ Cooperative Credit Union Limited Series A 7.35 variable rate GMD deferred shares, is a manner in which all stakeholders were determined to work together and persevere to make this listing a reality. I can recall a visit from Mr. Carlton Barkley, and then Mrs. Claudette Crooks, and the quick advice and encouragement from Mr. Trevor Patterson. I cannot recall, though, any rule amendment which was drafted so quickly. Prepared by Trevor with a review by our internal Regulatory and Market Oversight Committee and an external approval from the FSC, which means that something was working. Everybody was seeing something that was important. I can also recall the meeting with Mr. Shaw, Minister Shaw, and on this matter. Naturally, some actions took a little longer, but finally, here we are today. Congratulations to everyone who worked tirelessly towards today's event, the listing of the 450 million units of deferred shares. This is an important listing, as this is the first time in the history of the Jamaica Stock Exchange that we are listing a security of an organization that is not issued by a company, which is not incorporated under the Companies Act of Jamaica, or another approved jurisdiction. What is important to the exchange, however, is that the organization's regulatory framework was comparable, as market integrity and transparency was the most important factor in our consideration. Consequently, if you'll indulge me, I'll tell you what the rule change says. Our rule change reads as follows. Approved entity means an industrial and provident society, a cooperative society, a building society, a statutory corporation, collective investment schemes, or any other entity and or corporate structure enabled by governing legislation and approved by the exchange. So we have opened it right up for, but if you recognize that regulatory framework has to be there. I wish to again congratulate C&WJ Cooperative Credit Union as a trailblazer. And I don't know, you are quiet, but we want to congratulate them. Because certainly they are trailblazer. And I expect that soon we will see many more credit unions providing access to those who may not be members but want to participate by way of deferred shares. This will also increase capital that is so important to small businesses and individuals and further democratize and build the investment ecosystem. Community and Cooperative Credit Union Limited is the third entity to list its shares on the JSE main market in 2020, increasing the total listed securities on the JSE to 128 or 92 companies. Including these deferred shares, the number of companies listed on the main market, and that's the main market because you are going to be listing by introduction on the main market, amounts to 50 companies or 63 securities. I wish to thank C&WJ, CCUL, and all who by this move signal the belief and power of the stock market. We hope that we'll be able to partner with you again. We're looking for more, that's what we're saying, in the near future with projects and initiatives that will continue to inspire Jamaica so that we will build on the portfolios they have or they have just started. Once again, we welcome you here today and implore you to keep strong during what is still a challenging period for us all. Please continue to diversify your portfolio within the stock market. We know through your fortitude and foresight, our market will rebound shortly. It will. Are you agreeing? If you're agreeing, please let us see. Again, welcome, thank you, and remember, our doors are always open to you.
I think we missed something a while ago. You know. The MDs said the main market has 50 companies listed, and the stock exchange is 50 years old. I think that's very significant. Put your hands together for that milestone. Although it may, that's a great milestone. 50 years, although we have 91 companies now. Very good. All right, I'm going to be calling upon Mr. Carlton Barkley, Chief Executive Officer of C&WJ Cooperative Credit Union Limited, to come and give his remarks. Put your hands together for him, please. COVID time, so we have to make sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. And you'll all forgive me if I'm nervous. I've never been to a listing ceremony before. The Honorable Audley Shaw, Minister of Industry, Commerce and Agriculture and Fisheries. Mrs. Marlene Street Forrest, Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange Group. The Honorable Earl Jarrett, CEO, JN Group, and my former boss. Mr. Alan Lewis, Managing Director, JN Fund Managers. Mr. Errol Gallimore, Registrar, Department of Cooperatives and Friendly Societies. Mr. Reynard White, Senior, Market Surveillance and Compliance Officer. Mr. Condell Stevenson, President C&WJ. Mr. Fletcher, President of the League. Mr. Robin Levy, CEO of the League. Ms. Claudette Cooks from Money Masters. Members of the board, the rest of the board, C&WJ. Members of the management team, special guests, good morning. It was Nelson Mandela who had this quote. And I know you all know the quote, but I'm going to repeat it I'm going to read it just the same. It says, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Well, 2.5 years ago, that's what we heard. It can't be done. It can't be done. It's impossible. Well, today, in a few minutes, it will be done. Listing C&WJ on the stock exchange for an entity like the JSE, this is routine for the JSE. Maybe not be such a big thing. They do this thing very regularly. But for C&W, this is a major step forward. For the credit union movement, it is a major step forward. It is bringing C&W and the credit union movement into the 21st century of finance, where the market participates in funding decisions. What does listing do or mean for C&WJ? Well, quick background. C&WJ is the largest of 25 credit unions. We have assets of over $18 billion, and without the deferred shares, we would meet the capital ratios and the other liquidity ratios. So just quick background. But what it does for C&W is primarily it makes an existing source of funding even better by the fact that the security can be traded on the exchange. And there are numerous little reasons, right? So, yes, the market gives you a valuation that's important for IFRS, but the investors too want to know that they have an instrument that there is a fair value by a reputable entity. In addition, of course, it's a source of funding. A few years ago, we wanted to change our banking system. We had existing deferred shares that was maturing, and we had to make some decisions. So again, if the shares were listed or could have been listed back then, it would have made the decision a lot easier. So it is an existing source of funding. But importantly, I don't want to miss out on something which is difficult to quantify but important. It improves the image of C&WJ, and any entity who can list on an exchange as reputable as the JSE is worth something. So, the JSE has been known to be the top performing stock exchange in the world, a top whatever for the last 3 years. And for an entity, a little credit union like C&WJ, to be listed on this exchange, on the main market by introduction, we think that's a big thing. A little bit about the journey. The journey began 2.5 years ago. There's a lady that I knew from a previous life, from a previous entity, and my former boss is here. Her name is Claudette Crooks from Money Masters. And we met at the time we were preparing strategy, budget, stuff like that. We had deferred shares, which was maturing, and we had to come up with a strategy of how to either fund the renewal or get additional sources of capital. We wanted to buy a banking system. It was 1.5 million US. The deferred shares has an inherent simple defect, and I'll just quickly explain it. It is a relatively long-term instrument for the small man, 3, 5, 10 years. You would have made an investment with all good intention to keep your investment there for 5 years, etc. But after 6 months, your mother dead and you need some money, right? If it was listed, it would not be a problem. You simply go to a broker, you say, I have some C&W shares, I want to sell it. Depending on what the market conditions, it could be sold at a premium. Now, that is the simple defect that credit unions have to deal with something that they treated as capital before it was listed. What would happen is that the credit union now would have to serve for this little person and pay them back in order to make life easy. So it's important for those purposes. The journey, as I said before, was indeed long. And I have a lot of commendations for Ms. Marlene Street. She allowed a little credit union to come visit our office, explain what the stock exchange rules were. We explained what we wanted to do, and it was a long road. She explained to you the changes that she had to make to the rules in order to effect this. And Marlene, we thank you very much. A big part of this, however, was done by the firm Trevor Patterson. I've never met Dane, I don't know if he's here, but Trevor is, again, I knew Trevor from a previous life with my old boss. And, you know, I was able to pick up the phone, call Trevor, I said, Trevor, we want to do this thing and stuff like that. Thankfully, too, everybody knows Trevor. Trevor works for everybody, right? So, and he's the most busy person ever. And we were able to, with Trevor, meet with JSE, meet with Micah. Minister was here, Minister was in some of those meetings. The registrar, BOJ, Credit Union League, to clarify what was required in order for us to list. And we did it. I want to say something briefly. Our registrar is here, and I know we have to leave soon, Mr. Registrar. He was a little doubtful at first. I told him that, we had good advice and we had all the ingredients to make history. Now, in fairness to Mr. Gallimore now, though, he has already given detailed guidelines in relation to the credit unions listing deferred shares, including restrictions on the use in the capital-based calculation. So, Mr. Gallimore, I thank you. Our listing broker, headed by Alan Lewis, is a part of the JN Group, that's JN Fund Managers. Our listing broker has a young man called Jeremy and Deans. Now, I'm not necessarily the easiest person to work with, but Jeremy is a good worker, Mr. J, Alan. He sticks to his promises. He understood the issues. He was in all the meetings. He's a good guy. Wasn't a fluff, because we easily discover the fluff thing. And I don't know if we're going to give him a bonus, but I want to recognize. You need a good listing broker for all the credit unions. And I would not hesitate to recommend JN Fund Managers to all the credit unions. A little bit about the future. 1 minute. The future for C&WJ and for the credit union movement, I think, is bright. We've recently issued our MasterCard, which is on top of a suite of products that we have. We recently redid our website. Please go and look at it. We have internet banking capabilities now, along with a mobile app. And yes, we're even considering a name change. So watch this space. We will be rebranding soon. Look out for the new brand. And also, it is important to notice in terms of the future. C&WJ, and I can't take any credit for this, has had a 97% customer satisfaction rating for the last 7 years. So we're going places. Finally, of course, this all couldn't be done without my president, Mr. Condell Stevenson, and the board and management of C&WJ, and indeed the entire staff. So I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you to Condell and the management team. My former boss is here, and I just want to, just before I go, say to Mr. Jarrett, I know it's COVID time. Your presence here means a lot to me personally. You have given me advice and encouragement along the way, And I want to just say to you, Mr. J, EJ as I call you informally, we appreciate this very much and thank you very much for being here. Before I go, Paula says I am to say, and thank you to my wife. So I said, thank you to my wife. And I can't leave without saying thanks to Jehovah. Thank you very much.
I think this gentleman was saying he was nervous. I didn't see it come out any at all. Thank you very much, Sir Barkley, for that presentation. And you couldn't go home unless you thank your wife. You'll be in trouble. All right, we have come to the moment that is of most important here, and that is the insertion of this trip. You're saying a little credit union. You shouldn't say that, man. It's a big credit union with very
Before I officially present the rule book, just to say a few words. Given the comprehensive introduction by our Managing Director, allow me to say all protocols observed. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the listing of C&WJ Credit Union represents a historic milestone, as do all listings. It also represents the beginning of a new relationship with the regulator arm of the Stock Exchange. It's a relationship that we take very seriously. The purpose of the relationship is to ensure continued compliance with the rules of the exchange so that the company will continue to enjoy its favorable image, as was alluded to by Mr. Barkley. So join me in welcoming C&WJ to the main market via the rule book.
Thank you.
Mr. Bartley spoke about Honorable Earl Jarrett, and he will be giving us some brief remarks. So can you put your hands together for the CEO of Jamaica National as he comes forward to give his remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Master of Ceremonies. Minister, the Honorable Audley Shaw, Minister of Industry, Commerce and Fisheries, really good to see you this morning. Mrs. Marlene Street Forrest, Managing Director of Jamaica Stock Exchange. Mr. Condell Stevenson, President of the Community and Workers of Jamaica Cooperative Credit Union Limited. Mr. Carlton Barkley, CEO of C&WJ, if I were to abbreviate it. Mr. Errol Gaddimore, Registrar of the Department of Cooperatives and Friendly Societies. Mr. Alan Lewis, Managing Director of Jane Fund Managers Limited. Other members, board members, officers, staff of the C&WJ. Members from the Jamaica Cooperative Credit Union League. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all, a very special good morning to you on this historic morning for the C&WJ and for Jamaica. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Carlton Barkley and the team at C&WJ for initiating and executing this revolutionary capital markets initiative in Jamaica. Jamaica and Jamaicans have a long history of capital inadequacy, both at the state level and at the individual level. Historically, capital to fund economic activity was provided by merchants from England who supported the then industry of agriculture and to provide the support for the food and clothing of the enslaved people of Jamaica. With the decline in agriculture, which was primarily the export of sugar in the 1840, occasioned by the emancipation of the enslaved people of Jamaica, the need for basic necessities became increasingly obvious. The absence of financial services, including loans for the construction of homes, fueled social instability, leading to protests across the island, with a major upheaval happening in St. Thomas in 1865, when our national hero, Port Bogle, led a protest march from Stony Gut to Morant Bay in protest about living conditions and inequity and inequality in the island, no different from Black Lives Matters. In 1865, the Crown Colony government introduced the Building Societies Act to provide an opportunity for the people of Jamaica to save and thereby create capital that would be available for loans for housing purposes. In Great Britain at about the same time, the Industrial Revolution was in high gear, but the negative effects of the transition from agriculture to manufacturing and industry became exposed, with inequities in Britain as workers were exploited and there was increasing levels of child labor and exploitation of the citizens. Progressive persons advocated for the establishment of cooperatives to enable fair prices for goods and services and for an improvement in the working conditions of the people. Among the cooperatives came the historical development of the credit union movement. The credit union movement was introduced to Jamaica in 1939 with the arrival of a Jesuit, Father Peter Sullivan, who came to Jamaica to assume a teaching position at a great school, St. George's College. He immediately recognized that while the country now had retail banks, which were mainly branches of British or Canadian banks, they were not meeting the needs of the majority, mainly the black population. He introduced the credit union movement with the Sodality Credit Union, which was formed with an initial capital of US $1.87. You will note that this followed the mass protests of the 1930s, 1938 in particular, where arising from the poor working conditions, poor wages, and poor living conditions in Jamaica. It was out of that period the political movement emerged as well. The two political parties were formed in the following the 1938 protest. The credit unions were not-for-profit, member-based organizations who joined the business society movement as mutual savings and loans organizations. The Achilles heels or weakness of these mutuals is the inability to raise capital. Capital could only be raised by the generation of profits. And in fact, in the early days, as Carter would tell you, there was a time when you couldn't make a loan if you didn't generate enough profits to build up by the capital. That is the Achilles heels of the mutuals. And therefore, a savings instrument was created by the government through law, which was called deferred shares, which enabled the deferred shares to be treated as capital for mutual organizations like C&WJ. But like many, it was just there, but we didn't see the opportunities. And I give you a credit, Carter, for seeing the opportunities. As you know, as we're in the Jamaica Stock Exchange building, the stock exchange was established in February 1969 to raise capital for the development of businesses in Jamaica. And I believe in its early days, they traded on three types of instruments: debt instruments, bonds, preferred shares, and ordinary shares. As we all know, the stock exchange history has been a volatile one. In the period 1974 to 1986, it was flat. It was, I would say, dead. But again, through government intervention, where the government decided that they would privatize assets through the Jamaica Stock Exchange. It brought new life to the stock exchange. I say that to say that our development requires government involvement, and for those of my colleagues in another place who want government to disappear, it can't happen without government. And the government is the one who prepares the ground for us to do business by virtue of the legislations that they pass. C&W, through its innovation, its creativity, has created a solution to the challenge of raising capital in a mutual organization by today's listing of the deferred shares to redeem existing liabilities and to raise additional capital for its development and future plans. By this single act, we could be seeing a new day for mutual organizations and other profitable not-for-profit or entities who may seek to raise capital. This initiative could have a profound impact on the credit union movement and the role of the Credit Union League, as you have the Jamaica Stock Exchange now. It also questions what we're doing with the social stock exchange, because in effect, this is in a good annex to that initiative. And maybe if we can get those social enterprises to adopt good governance, this is the way in which we could, through the rule change that you have made, this is an opportunity for them to raise capital by listing deferred shares and other allowable instruments. At Jamaica National, we are proud to have been invited to be a part of this historic movement. And make no mistakes about it. This is history in the making. For generations to come, academics will be looking at this morning and writing it, and students will study it. I think it's Matthew 13:32, which speaks to the parable of the mustard seed, where from a little tree, from a little seed can be grown, from one of the smallest seeds can grow a large tree, and the birds of the air and others shall find shade under it. In essence, that is what the credit union movement and the movement of cooperatives, that's why you have this umbrella, in that you provide shade to people from the ravages of our world today, where people in the quest for profits will destroy people. And so you are effectively creating a shade tree for the people of Jamaica, for us to grow our business, make reasonable profits, but provide an opportunity for individuals to get capital so that they can then fund their children's education. They can have inherited or intergenerational wealth that passes on from one generation to the next. That has been a major challenge in Jamaica. I must congratulate you, Carlton Barkley, on this initiative of yours and your team, your chairman. But I focus on Carlton a little bit because I've known him for many years. We were together as shall I say, young boys at Pete Marvick, Mitchell, on Duke Street here, just a stone's throw from this building. And in those days, we were innovating, whether it was the Macintosh computers. I remember once having a set of numbers to calculate, and in those days we had 15-column or 7-column spreadsheets. And Carlton said he has a way to do this quickly. I said, what is that? He goes and he comes back with a printout from an Excel spreadsheet on the first generation Macintosh computers. So this is the kind of gentleman you see here. As he says, he's not easy to work with. He can be very, very, very forceful. And he sometimes uses colorful language. but he's an innovator. And I salute you today as a change maker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sir Jared. We got a good bit of history there. The credit union is 81 years in Jamaica. 1939, yes, that's a long time. Wow. I think we should really put our hands together for the credit union movement. All right, Mr. Earl Gallimore. Errol, I beg your pardon, sir. Errol Gallimore, Registrar, Department of the Cooperative of Friendly Society. You will give us his remarks. Put your hands together for Mr. Gallagher.
Thank you very much, Mr. Master of Ceremony, Honorable Minister, and all the invited and special invited guests. This is very long, but all protocol observed. I want to begin by saying that this journey has been a long one. I think it is even a little bit longer than 2.5 years. But sometime in 1999, this business of the deferred shares were introduced to the credit union movement. And a lot of discussion took place. And the first credit union to actually pass their rules and amend their rules to pass deferred shares were St. Elizabeth Credit Union. And between 1999 and 2002, the Jamaica Credit Union League was instrumental in assisting the number of credit unions then to introduce deferred shares. Nobody anticipated then that we'd have come all the way to today to have deferred shares being listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Out of the 25 credit unions that we have today, 15 of those credit unions have deferred shares. And 2 of those 15, since they've heard about C&WJ, have called to find out what is happening with these deferred shares. So Mr. Bat has lit a fire, and he has caused me to be getting more work now from these other 15 credit unions who have suddenly gotten jealous and feel they want to know what is happening. So he has lit a fire. But, so the Jamaica Stock Exchange can look forward to engage in 1 or 2 more credit unions as we move forward, but there are at least 15. Now the truth is, the credit union movement, with its 98 billion in deposits, 89 billion in loans, and 127 billion in assets, has been a sleeping giant. But this listed on the stock exchange is just a roar of that sleeping giant. Credit unions, they are going to be the author of their own script. And they are the ones who will change and edit those scripts as we move forward. They are going to be the master of their own destiny as related to the financial landscape in which they operate. And I'm pretty sure over the next few years, what you will begin to see is more consolidation of these 25 credit unions, who I'm pretty sure would want to consolidate their own funds and capital so that they can respond to the internal shock and the external shock of more regulatory framework that is to come from the Bank of Jamaica. Nothing is wrong with that, and you have to prepare. So I want to use this opportunity to say to C&WJ that yes, I would admit that I was not so convinced at the beginning of the journey, and it took a while for me to be converted. But I'm happy to say that I'm now converted, and I'm pretty much on board. So I wish you well as you move forward. As the current regulator for the credit union, we continue to ensure that you comply with all the requirements that you have promised to comply with. And we're going to hold you to every single letter of the law as related to the stock exchange so that we don't have any issues and any complaint and anybody have to be calling honorable minister for him to come and resolve the problem. So with those few words, I wish you well and the board of the C&WJ Credit Union for the vision in having this ceremony here today. Thank you so much.
Sir Gallimore, knowing Mrs. Street Forest, she'll be going after all 15. Don't worry yourself. That's a type of personality. All right, we are almost at the closing. So Louis, you are the next batsman up, but not the, I think you're a very good batsman. They should have put you at the front. I'm going to be calling on Mr. Alan Lewis, the Managing Director for the Jane Fund Managers Limited, to give the closing remarks. Put your hands together for him, please.
Thank you very much, Neville, for that kind introduction. I'm a footballer, not a critic. But my clients, Mr. Stevenson and Mr. Barkley, and the members of your team at the C&WJ Credit Union, Honorable Minister Shaw of the great constituency of northeastern Manchester, Mrs. Marlene Street Forest, Managing Director of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, my boss, Mr. Earl Jarrett, the Honorable Earl Jarrett, and boy, what a month. Thank you, Earl, for being here. Friends all, members of the media. Today, listening to the speakers before me, I reflected on two themes. One is coming together to achieve a common goal, and the second one is innovation to achieve that goal. And I take you back to a story that Basil Buck, a former chairman of the stock exchange, told me many years ago that, Alan, you know, when we started this thing, trading might have taken 10 minutes in a little room over at the Bank of Jamaica building. This is in the late 60s and early 70s, as Earl said. And of course, for those of you who don't know, it is important that you know that the stock exchange was the brainchild of the Honorable Edward Seago, former Prime Minister of Jamaica, the most Honorable Edward Seago, of blessed memory. Baslan himself are of blessed memory. And when you think of what the stock exchange has become today, it's I think, it's remarkable. And I think, you know, Marlene will tell you that she's building, or she's standing on the street, on the shoulders of giants in building this exchange. And I think she deserves a round of applause for that. For continuing the traditions that started with the idea that led to the innovations such as the junior market and so on. And she tells me there's more things to come. Of course, Marlene is joined today by her former colleague, who is here behind the mask. Robin, there, and Robin, nice to see you. The second theme that about coming together that it made me reflect on is how many different people had to be involved in getting this thing done. And on that score, you know, Mr. Stevenson and Carlton, I'd like to thank you for giving JN fund managers and the JN group, you know, showing the confidence to appoint us as your broker. And I know that you also paid tribute to Claudette Crooks, who helped you with the idea and formulating what you did. So big up Claudette to you as well. But so many people were involved to getting this done. And it just tells us what we can do when we all band together and put our shoulders to the wheel to achieve a common objective. And I'm sure we all wish that some of our colleagues in other areas of our country would be able to work as well together to get common things done. But the other thing I'm proud of, or the thing I have to be proud of, is, as you mentioned, you stole my thunder in mentioning Jermaine Deans, who no longer is with JN Fund Managers, but he's still within the JN group. His boss promoted him to run our Cayman business last year, August. And one of the things I'm proud of is that you at C&W didn't even realize that Jermaine was no longer with JN Fund Managers as we helped you to achieve this result today. And I pay tribute here to Dylan Cope, one of my colleagues at JN Fund Managers, who picked up the baton. He only joined us in May, and yet you were not even aware of how well we were able to serve you, despite the challenges of losing a key team member during a key stage of your journey to get the listing completed. So Dylan, thank you very much for jumping in the fray and doing so well in such a short time without any support or much support from me, because you had to get it done. So thank you for that. So on your behalf, I'd like to thank the media for being here to cover this event. I'd like to thank JCSD and the Stock Exchange again for being a beacon, an institution that is also important to our
economy and our development and allowing us to do the things that we are doing today and grow our economy and make things happen for the members of the C&WJ Pension Fund. So with that, thanks again, team. Thanks again, colleagues. Keep safe during this pandemic, and we'll see you on the other side. Thank you.